starting with a class with a new session, that is Peplau's interpersonal relationship theory. So what is that interpersonal relationship theory which was developed by Peplau, Ilgard D. Peplau? Let me see the slides. The theory of interpersonal relationships. So as per the heading itself, that is interpersonal theory, the basic elements of the theory, and one more thing is there is a relationship or interaction between the nurse and the patient. So three elements are clearly explained in Peplau's interpersonal relationship theory. What are the three elements? One, it is the patient. Second one, the nurse, and the relationship or interaction between the nurse and the patient. So this is interpersonal relationship theory. Moving on to the meta-paradigm. So already we know that meta-paradigm, it is explained in four concepts. One, it is client or the patient. Second one, it is the environment. Third one, it is the health. And fourth one, it is the nursing. So according to Peplau, what is the client or who is client? Who is client according to Peplau? So client, it is a human, that is a person, a couple, or a group of persons, or even a community. All this four, they require some care, and that care we want to give it with dignity, privacy, and ethics. So that is client or patient according to Peplau. So who is client or patient? Client or patient, he or she is a person. It could be a couple, group of persons, or a community itself, where they require some sort of care, and that care should be given with dignity, privacy, and the nursing ethics. Moving on to the second one, that is the environment. So what is environment? Environment, it could be anything, that is, can be a illness, or it can be maintaining the health or promoting the health by changing the physiological, psychological, and social environment of a patient. That is environment. The next one, it is the health. What is health according to Peplau? Health is any sort of wellness which is directed in form of creative, constructive, personal, or community living that is initiated either by a person or by a group of persons. So what is health? It is giving the ultimate sort of wellness, that it could be a creative, constructive, personal, or community living, and that is given by the personality, that is a person or any human process, any human community can able to give the health services. Then who is nurse? Who is nurse according to Peplau? Nurse, he or she, it is a maturing force, and that force, it is working with the art of nursing, where they are using their values, they are committed, and they are giving some ideas, all are giving for the well-being of the persons or the patient. So this is the nurse. So who is a nurse? A maturing force who is having the art of nursing, or who knows the art of nursing, where they are following some ethics, values, and integrity, so that a complete well-being of the client can be ensured. That is nurse. And what is nursing? Art, a nurse gives that which is between the persons. So between the persons means interpersonal. It is an interpersonal process between the nurse and the client. And both are working. It could be two persons or more persons, but all are working to achieve a certain common goal, and that common goal, it is for the healing of the patient. So this is nursing. So what is nursing according to Peplau? According to Peplau, nursing means it is an interaction between interaction between the nurse and the client, so that both are working together in order to achieve a common goal. So what is the common goal? When a patient is there in front of us, our common goal is to reduce the illness in the patient and to bring about the ultimate wellness in the patient. That is nursing. So next we will see what is the conceptual model for the Peplow's theory. So if you see the diagram, and what is this? An outer oval shape, white color oval shape is there. So that is the environment where within the nurse and the patient is working. So within the environment, the nurse and the patients two are there. In between the nursing process, the nursing, what care we are giving to the client, and nurse who is having some preconceptions, anxiety, some sort of thinking and learning, but she is self-understanding. She uses her own concept process, and she is having some competencies where that is used for the developing a self-understanding in the patient, and also to bring about the self-identity in the client. The client is also having the preconception, anxiety, thinking, and the learning process. Clear? Now, if you are seeing between that arrow, it is a double-headed arrow. It indicates that the nurse and the patient both are working together. The concept of a nurse, it is needed for the client or the patient, and the concept of the patient, it is needed for the nurse also, so that both are working together. So there comes the meaning interpersonal. They are the patient, they are working together so that the illness, it to the next. So interpersonal process. So interpersonal process, if you are saying, so there are four phases in the interpersonal process. That is orientation phase, identification phase, exploitation phase, and the resolution phase. These are the four phases in the interpersonal process of the Peplau theory. Everybody knows. So from the word itself, it is their orientation. What does orientation means? It is establishing the relationship. So the relationship, it is established between the client and the nurse. Second one is identification. So identification, what identification? The nurse, here she is clarifying or identifying the problem of the client. Also the client is identifying the strength of his bone with the help of the nurse. Then comes the third one, that is exploitation. So what is exploitation? In the identification phase, some sorts of problems they are identified, and that problems between the nurse and the client, they are meeting the needs of the nurse and the client. Students, kindly mute your audio, please. Everyone mute your audio. Next comes the resolution. So what is a resolution? Resolution means there it is terminating the relationship. So here resolution means the nurse and the patient, they are terminating the relationship. So if you are saying the interpersonal process, there are 4 phases in the interpersonal process. That is, number 1, it is orientation. Orientation means it is establishing the relationship with the nurse and the client. Both are establishing an relationship. Next, identification. Identification means they are clarifying the problem. Coming to the third one, it is exploitation. So what does exploitation mean? What problems they are identified, those are selected and they are meeting the needs of the client. The nurse is meeting the needs of the client. And last comes the resolution. Resolution means they are terminating the relationship. So moving on to the next slide. So if you're seeing the next slide, what is orientation? Orientation means it is getting acquainted. That is the relationship. It is starting with the nurse and the patient. And here they are having some preconception. So what preconception the nurse could have? So some measures if we are giving, my patient will be attaining the wellness soon. And patient will also be having some preconception that if I am doing like this, my disease will be reduced. So they are having the preconception. Both will be explaining or both will be discussing their preconception between each other, and both will be knowing what is their exact role, how the disease can be reduced or health can be maintained, and also they will be developing a trust between each other. So what trust? The patient will be developing a confidence that whatsoever I am telling to my nurse, she will be keeping it in confidentiality, or the nurse who is giving care to me, she will be giving the utmost care. What levels of trust the nurse will be having? The nurse is having the trust that my patient will be cooperating with me, so that I can able to, we both can work together so that his illness can be reduced and his ultimate level of health can be maintained or accomplished. Moving on to the next. Identification. So what is identification? So here the client begins to identify the problem, and also the nurse will be identifying the problem. And when they are identifying the problem, the nurse will be knowing what type of problems the client can able to reduce or resolve it dependently. Also the nurse will come to know that what sort of actions or what sort of problems require independent nursing actions and dependent nursing actions. Some are there where the client can able to by resolve himself, but some problems will be there where the client requires the help of the nurse. So there in the identification phase, the nurse and the client, they will be identifying the problems which can be resolved in the coming days of care. Moving on to the next slide. Exploitation. So the previous phase, that it was in the identification phase, both of them, they have listed down what are all the problems in the client, and for that problems they will be prioritizing the problem, same like our nursing process. They will be prioritizing the problems and what sort of nursing care can be given to the client. So for each problem, many interventions are there, and that interventions are discussed together, and the nurse will be giving the interventions to the client so that the nurse can able to resolve the problem of the client. Now in this phase, the nurse will be again dividing the problem into the problems which require immediate action, and also the problem requires some late action, that is which is not that much of having priority. So here what they will be doing, they will be identifying those problems who requires the immediate action first, and that is resolved first in the exploitation phase. Then which is requiring very minimal attention, that is resolved in the next phase of exploitation. Also, the nurse and the patient will be working together so that they can able to have or they can able to fix some discharge goals. In the exploitation phase itself, they will be identifying what are all the problems which require some discharge goals. So this is also identified in the exploitation phase. So in the exploitation phase, we have saw that the client who has made a complete trust over the nurse, he or she, the client is using the complete use of nursing services, and also the nurse is resolving the problems of the client which is requiring immediate actions first, and also she requires the problems later which requires less immediate action. And also both will sit together and identify what are the goals in the discharge period. Also they will be, both will be, that is the nurse and the patient will be planning together what are the discharge goals. And moving on to the last phase, that is the resolution phase. So what is resolution phase? So resolution phase, the final phase where the nurse and the patient, they will be feeling secured, and most of the client's problem, it has been recovered. Client has developed his own potential. He has increased self-reliance where he can able to deal with his own problem. At that level, the client will be reaching, and you will call that as the resolution phase, where the nurse and the patient will be terminating their relationship in the resolution phase. So termination is also necessary. That is, after the client illness is reduced, or when the client has attained some sort of healthness or the optimum sort of healthness, then what can be done? The client and the nurse has to terminate their relationship, and that is Peplau's last phase of interpersonal relationship, that is resolution. So today what we have saw regarding the Peplau's interpersonal relationship theory. So in the Peplau's interpersonal relationship theory, the basic elements are: one, the nurse; second is the patient; and the third one, it is the relationship between the both. If you are seeing, as all theory, it is also having the meta paradigm, that is what is patient, who is patient, what is environment, what is health, and what is nursing. And when you're seeing the interpersonal relationship theory, it is explained in 4 phases. The 4 phases are: number 1, it is the orientation phase; number 2, it is the identification phase; number 3, it is the exploitation phase; and number 4, it is the resolution phase. So orientation phase, it is establishing the relationship. Identification phase, it is identifying or clarifying the problem of the client. Third one, it is the exploitation phase, that is there what problems are identified, the nurse and the patient are resolving it or meeting the needs. And the fourth one, after meeting the needs, they are terminating the relationship. You will call it as resolution phase. I hope every one of you have understood the class. Any doubt?
No, ma'am.
Only one sound is coming.
No,
No,
ma'am.
ma'am. No, ma'am.
No, ma'am.